everyone, John and Ray here, slingshotfutures.com, and welcome to the daily futures and crypto market outlook for tomorrow's trading. That's going to be for the 2nd of the month, going into November now. Starting off November with a little bit of a kind of gross start. Lots of back and forth and FOMC news on top of everything else, and we've got Facebook and all of them and hearings about fake news and stuff. It's just an absolute mess today, the way that everything is going. But before we jump on into the charts, as always, make sure to swing it over to slingshotfutures.com, scroll down and click on the Daily Outlook newsletter. From here, you'll be able to sign up for the newsletter, so you'll be notified every time one of these videos comes out. But along with that, in the newsletter itself, we talk about different things that are moving that are of interest between stocks, cryptos, you name it. If it moves, it'll show up in there at some point, and it's a great newsletter to get your hands on if you haven't done so already. Along with that, check out the live trade room subscription and trial info. From there, you'll be able to sign up for a free 3-day trial in the live trade room, so you can hang out with us for a couple days and see what we're all about. Inside the live trade room, you'll be able to see the screens, the trades that's going on, the way that we're analyzing the markets. You'll be able to see pretty much everything that we're doing, and you'll be able to kind of bounce some questions back and forth. And it's just a really good way to kind of keep an eye on things, you know, and get a closer look into how things work. So if you haven't done so already, make sure to sign up for that as well. Now, looking across the board here on the euro, first of all, the euro not really doing a whole lot, but they are still respecting that high side resistance as expected. Beautiful resistance for the drive down. Sellers are still accumulating pretty much every high that's been made above that most recent swing high, and the major objective for them is going to be down to the lows. Now, a couple things that stand in the way. First of all, whenever you have an aggressive rally like this, sometimes you will see these strong dips lower like that are usually reversed back up. But those dip lows become big areas of interest. And we can see that the buyers are already starting to kind of come in here a little bit, and that could just be sellers taking profit. But either way, we really need to keep an eye on these lows, and that could pause price for a little while as it gets stuck around there trying to break through it. If they can break through it, then looking to use it as resistance just like normal. But until then, downside for right now, we still have a little bit of room, but just keep that in mind as we approach these major levels of support from previous. They can cause a lot of headache. It's the same thing that happened back here, this big swing high. Well, guess what acted as a level of support and resistance for quite a while? Yeah, we're still on top of it right now. So we always want to keep an eye on those areas, but the sell side does look really good for continuation of the downside still. Objectives, major objectives at least, down to 60.40, but they may get held up a little bit above that at 6,100 for, you know, some preliminary bounces. Sellers taking profit a little early ahead of the swing, etc. So something to keep your eyes on there as well. But either way, though, looking for the sell side and continuation down. Over on gold, gold doing very much the same that it has been for a while now, pinging back and forth between support at 73.7 and resistance up at 80, and it actually did that over the course of 1 hour, and now it looks like we're probably going to do it again in the opposite direction. These two levels are very, very strong, and so far I really wouldn't want to mess with them. Now we do have the potential of a larger channel or a larger wedge at play. Depends on how you want to draw it up. If you draw it off the highs, it would be a little bit more of a wide or broader channel to a wedge, but for the most part, looking to play this still mostly as a kind of a range with a preference of selling high. Selling high makes more sense just due to the prevailing trend. So selling off of 1280 makes a lot of sense, but they are not joking around. When it taps at 73.7, it catches some pretty big movement, so you got to be careful around that as well. For the most part, though, the sell side is still the side that I would rather be on, looking for continuation down. And again, looking for objectives just above those lows, just mainly due to the fact of all of this rejection at the bottom. I would rather be looking for profit targets at around 67 just to get out of the way of having to deal with, you know, trying to sit through that major level of support holding. So that's really the game plan for gold. Now, if we can get a little bit more of a breakdown on proof, if we can start breaking away from this level, get underneath rising support, then come back, that would be a picture-perfect selling opportunity. But for right now, we're just kind of selling in the face of a lot of support, and it's a tough situation to be in. So the objective right now is to sell at as good of a price as possible. Over on crude oil, we did finally exceed that objective, not by much, but we did test that major objective up at 55.12 to 13. They popped up as high as 55.20s, you know, 22 or so, and now we are collapsing back down. Inventory didn't help for whatever reason. Inventories were actually bullish, but the market doesn't seem to agree with that, and we are pulling back. So the major objective that we've been talking about since the 30th of last month, a couple days ago, that objective is finally done and gone. Now, in terms of levels of support or other things that we can keep our eyes on, there is a potential of a rising level of support. They're challenging it right now, and we're arguing, basically, over who owns control. Now, I say arguing because they held the initial test beautifully, but then they tried to break down, and now they're coming back up again. It's almost like they're just kind of bickering back and forth on who has more control over the level, and until they really decide that, we're going to have to assume that both have an argument, a valid argument, until we get some confirmation, a good candle close or something. As it stands right now, as an example, if this candle were to close right this second, we would have a twin reversal and a good clue that the buyers are trying to come back in and push the market back up. But this candle just started 10-15 minutes ago, so there's plenty of time for that to change around. Overall, I think buyers will be looking for better prices if possible and looking to buy as cheaply as possible, and that's going to be at around 53.60. Aggressive buyers may opt for 53.80 or even where we are right now, just below 54. Either way, though, buyers will likely be scaling in on lows, looking for better prices to hang on for the next couple days to weeks, and looking for continuation off of that. If we get a little more proof of this reversal on the bottom, like a twin reversal, that would add even more emphasis to the buy side. But for right now, we have a strong bear trend in the way, and buying at this point in time is going to be considered early to the party, so you have to adopt a little extra risk if that's going to be your game plan. Over on the S&P did break higher. Now, the earlier fib that we were looking at, they tested the 38.2 and popped all the way back up to the highs, made a new high, but quickly failed lower off of the top of that wedge. That gives us an idea that, hey, you know what? They held the 38.2, but they failed a lot of follow-through. Normally, when you hold the 38.2, those are the ones that get those big secondary legs. We didn't get that, at least not yet. It might not be done, but it hasn't come through yet. So because of that, I'm looking for another pullback. Maybe a retest of the 38.2, could be a little bit further to the 50%, and I appreciate the 50% more just due to the massive amount of support and resistance that's come in around there. So at around 25.64 and a quarter, down to the 50%, which is just a little further down. Let me move that to the right side so we can actually see what that price is. There we go, at 63 and a half. Otherwise, we're just kind of looking to hang out where price is currently. Nice bear drop off of the highs, likely going to see a secondary leg to this, and that secondary leg is where I'm looking for a reversal potential right back up again. So that's taking a look at the outlook for tomorrow's trading. Now, in terms of tomorrow's trading, we have a lot of news going on, and a lot of that news is spread throughout the day. Not a whole lot of U.S.-based news, mind you. In fact, no big U.S. news tomorrow, but we do have a lot of outer U.S., I think is the best way to put it, news announcements. At 4:55 out of Germany, we have the German manufacturing PMI for October. At 5 o'clock, we have the German unemployment change. At 5:30, we have the construction PMI for the UK. At 8 o'clock for the UK, we have the Bank of England inflation report. 8 o'clock again, we have the interest rate decision, so the Bank of England interest rate decision. And then at 8 o'clock as well, we have the Bank of England MPC meeting minutes, kind of like what we had today, the meeting minutes. At 8:30 tomorrow morning, out of the UK, once again, Bank of England Governor Carney speaking. And then at 20:30 in the afternoon, out of Australia, we have the retail sales, but nothing for the US, at least not big. Minor news announcements, that's about it. So not a whole lot to really worry about for the US session tomorrow. We got a bunch of UK news, so if you are a British pound trader, tomorrow might be a very interesting day, but for us here in the US, that's not going to give us a whole lot to work with. Fingers crossed, price action still maintains its volatility. Now, looking over on Bitcoin, 3 cheers for Bitcoin, right? Bitcoin rallying aggressively higher, making a new high once again. Today's high was put in up at 66.52 and 13 cents, at least based off Coinbase, and just a really good continuation of the upside, looking awesome. Huge amount of bullish pressure, still grinding higher, and the buyers are buying still every dip. I'm still not really heavily convinced that there's going to be, I'm not convinced that there's going to be a big burst through the top. We're just not seeing that follow through anymore. So when we're looking at this overall kind of movement that we've got, it's I'm a little bit nervous on the high side. I would still much rather, like we were talking about yesterday, see a bigger pullback down into major support from where we can push the market back up. But aside from that, I'm still a little bit nervous on up here. It might still break through, and it could very well, Bitcoin, it might just rocket through and hit 7,000 tonight after I say that. But I would much prefer to see a healthy correction like Bitcoin is known for, and that dip would be down at around 6,300 or lower to get some better pricing to buy in once again. Over on Bitcoin Gold, since we have that on part of our list now, Bitcoin Gold is a kind of an interesting scenario right now. We are forming a little bit of a wedge right here, and we have blown off the highs of the channel. Big blow off on the highs of the channel. So because of that, looking for continuation of the downside would be breaking down underneath here to equalize this breakout up. Whenever you have a breakout to the upside, you generally see a breakdown of equal or sometimes even more distance. So it makes a lot of sense to see Bitcoin Gold take a little bit further of a dip to buy a little further down. Around 120s would be really, really nice. But if you look through here, I mean, you do have previous swing highs at around 117.50. You have some previous swing lows after that breakout that was put in around 120. So really this zone inside of here is going to be an area of interest for buyers to jump in on the pullback. Now, because we're looking at Bitcoin Gold, we might as well take a look at Bitcoin Cash, even though it's not really doing a whole lot. We have a very obvious range, and Bitcoin Cash has a beautiful range that is going to be, honestly, pretty straightforward to play. Buying the lows of the range, and then when it gets to the highs of the range, sell out of it. It does look like it's appearing to kind of narrow a little bit, tighter range forming there, highs forming there, so that may give you an intermediary range to play as well. But for right now, Bitcoin Cash is just a straight range, looking to buy a low, sell high, and stay out of the middle. Right now, it's in the middle. Now, because of this meteoric rise on Bitcoin, as if that's any brand new news, it's not like it just started going up, but because of that continuation rally to the upside, we are seeing Ethereum dipping back lower, and the same goes for Litecoin, and pretty much every other coin that isn't Bitcoin is catching some heat today. Looking at the way that Ethereum is looking, we broke down through the wedge. They held it as resistance. Now we're grinding a little bit lower, and we have that 50% fib below us. Now again, you know me, I'm not a big fan of fibs by themselves. I need a little bit more proof. You know, give me something to work with. And this 50% lines up really perfectly with those previous swing lows back here. Lots of support coming at that 293.58 area, and I would love to be a buyer around there if we can start showing some support for another bounce up. That also coincides with a Bitcoin pullback that I would like to see. So Bitcoin starts pulling back while Ethereum is balancing in this area. That could create kind of a good 1-2 punch for a nice lift to the upside for Ethereum. Same thing goes for Litecoin. Litecoin is dipping back towards the 786. The 61.8 is broken. Not a whole lot else there. So if we're looking at the 786, we also have major buy support just underneath that, and it's all kind of in the same location. Once again, stacking these levels in our favor. We have a buy zone right around 54 if you want to cut it in half, kind of find the average of it. 54 or so is going to be that major bouncing area. One thing of concern that I do have for Litecoin is the amount of bearish pressure that's coming in. We haven't really seen the buyers prove a whole lot yet, so you're going to be buying a little bit more on faith than anything else at this point in time until we get a little more proof. That proof would be something like this. You see the buyers react, they pull back a little bit, react again, right? Then buyers are going to start jumping in on those reaction points. Right now, you're buying early in hopes that this is what happens, and that can be a little bit aggressive. Being early to the party can sometimes be fun, but it can also be a little bit painful. Over on Neo is dipping down to major support again. These are the huge levels of support or resistance that we've been playing off of for the past month now. Dipping down to 26.21, popping up to 21.83, selling down to 26.21, bouncing out at 31.83. Rinse and repeat over and over and over again. We are right back there again, and we are holding support there again, so it's not a big surprise to see an initial bounce. Now we're looking for continuation off of that. So buy support at 26.21, but again, that head and shoulders does have a projection down at around 18.30. So there could be a little more downside, but I'm certainly not going to be the one to disagree with this amount of support coming in, and I will look to play it just like every other time that it's bounced off of that area. Now, again, because Bitcoin has been rallying so aggressively, we are seeing markets like ADA, like ETP, some of those longer-term ones that I have a lot of interest in, are catching a pretty big dip. That's not necessarily a bad thing in my view, because, again, I'm looking to hang on to these coins for the next months to years. I have a lot of faith in these types of environments, especially Cardano, and I'm looking for continuation up. So I'm viewing this as a sale price. They're giving it to me at basically half off or 40% off. This is a nice area to buy in for longer term holders. In terms of shorter term, we might need to wait for a little bit more info. One thing that does stand out is the potential for a wedge bottom to be put in, and that's where we're hovering right now at around 372. So buyers will be looking for that area for a correction back up, likely to around 430s or so. And then, of course, we can't go on without mentioning it again. ETP coming back down after testing that major resistance at $4.54, bouncing off of that support level once again and holding. Looking for a little more continuation to the upside. Again, long-term buyers are going to be hanging on to this for continuation up. But either way, I think long-term viability of this type of currency, blockchain technology, whatever you want to call it, has a very good long-term capability of, in the next year or so going up by 5-10 times its current value, and I do definitely think that that is going to be the case with ETP and ADA. Either way, though, I'll be hanging on to them, and we're looking for, just to see what they want to do as Bitcoin continues this rally. So that's going to do it for the outlook. Hopefully you found it useful and interesting. Maybe something you can add to your tool belt going into tomorrow. As always, like we always say, doesn't matter what market you're trading, whether you're trading gold, you're trading cryptos, you're trading Forex, always make a plan, trade that plan, follow those rules, and you'll be A-okay. Until next time, we'll see y'all then.